Welcome to the Lifestyle MD podcast, a podcast dedicated to high-achieving women who are conquering their careers while striving for total wellness. I am Dr. Angela Andrews, and I am thrilled to be your guide on this journey. All right. Hello. Welcome to another episode of the Lifestyle MD. I am Dr. Angela, your host, and I have a special guest here with me today. I'm with one of my besties going way back to middle school, who was a nurse midwife. And gosh, we spent a lot of time talking about the woes of healthcare, woes of mental health, woes of all the things. And I am so happy to have her on today. Roneidra Lucky. Can you go ahead and tell the audience who you are, what you do, what your hobbies and interests are, educational background, all the good stuff?
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, like you said, I'm Roneidra, and we have known each other for a very long time. I am a certified nurse midwife, so it's basically a nurse practitioner that also delivers babies. So I do hospital deliveries, and then I also provide women's care in the office setting. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology from Central Michigan University. I have a bachelor's degree in nursing from Michigan State University, and I have a master's degree in nurse midwifery from Wayne State University. So professional student schooling. And because of my psychology background, I enjoy talking with people about their mental health and their journey, and just giving any treatment that I can along the way.
All right. Thank you for that introduction, Nidra. So last night celebrated my birthday, your husband's birthday, and we got into some conversations about mental health. This is something that you and I are both very passionate about. Your audience or your patients are primarily women, right? And by no choice of my own, just by selection bias, most of my patients are women as well. And so men and women both have mental health challenges, but I think we are uniquely see a lot of those challenges that moms, working moms, professional women face just in life in general. And there's some things that I'd like for you to share just in your personal experience, and we can have a dialogue about that. So first things first, what is the first piece of advice you give anyone who might be facing mental health challenges, or people who think they have no issues at all and everything's hunky-dory?
So I all the time that everybody needs a therapist. You should just have one in your back pocket, because you never know what life is going to throw at you. I wish that it was more normalized, so that this was there, the stigma was gone, and that everyone can just as they can be. I originally sought therapy when I knew that I was going to have weight loss surgery, because skills were eating, and I didn't have any other coping skills besides that.
Mm-hmm.
And after I started seeing my therapist, all of these other life events happened, and it was just one cascade after another of things that I had no clue were going to come. And I've been seeing her for the last 5 years. So
yeah, she's amazing. Full disclosure, Nidra introduced me to her, and she is now my therapist, and she's great.
Yes, and you just never know. And it's easier to seek help when you are in crisis mode. And so I was glad that I was able to do that. We do have great resources in West Michigan as far as urgent care type things for health, but you really need to establish that relationship, because you have to kind of date your therapist. I mean, it's kind of like speed dating sometimes to find a good fit. Everybody's not going to be great for everyone. So it is a process. So it is a little bit easier to do if you're not in full crisis mode.
And I think that's an important point that you make. A lot of times when patients are coming to see me, and we're having this conversation, it's usually by, at the point where things are starting to fall apart. Maybe there are things going on in their life that were affecting them that either they were in denial about, or they just didn't want to talk to me about. And it's finally reached the point where they don't want to get out of bed, or they don't have the energy to do anything. Maybe they're about to lose their job, and they can't add one more thing to their plate, even if it involves looking for a therapist. So trying to do that in that crisis mode is very challenging. And it's one of the things that delays people from getting help. Would you agree?
Yes, definitely. There's not enough therapists to go around. So often there's a wait list. And then when you do get matched up with somebody, you have to make sure that it's a good fit. And for some reason, women especially, we always want it to be something else. So I have women coming to me wanting to get their thyroid level checked or their estrogen level checked, because they think that that's the source of their depression. It's like, no, that's it's not. There's no patch or pill or anything supplement that's going to fix this. Like, you have to get a therapist. You have to do the work.
Yeah, and this echoes so much of what I talk about just on a regular basis. Everyone knows, okay, I talk about lifestyle, improving your lifestyle to have better health and fitness. And this is all about work. It's not just going to happen if with wishful thinking. You can't magically achieve these goals without putting in some effort. So first thing I tell folks, patients or clients or otherwise, is if you're not ready to put in some work, then you're not ready for the transformation, because you're going to have to take some steps, because you're undoing 10, 20, 30, maybe even 40 years,
Yes.
right, of ingrained
Yeah.
behavior, dysfunctional thoughts, poor emotional intelligence, all the things. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. All these things impact each other. I mean, you talked about your mental health and your eating habits, and that's all tied together. These things don't happen in isolation. And at the time that you had recommended your therapist to me, I've been doing fine, but I was like, you know what? You're right. I know I'm going to need to have someone at some point. So I better see if she's a good fit for me. So when that time comes again, because there's been moments, I got somebody.
And you can always, increase or decrease the frequency of your visits. When I first started seeing her, I went every week. And there were different times where we backed off to once a month, but then picked it back up to every 2 weeks, just to kind of check in. My daughter has a therapist, and there was a time period where her therapist was like, okay, I think that she's doing okay. She just wants to come play with the toys. But then COVID happened, and they were, homeschooling, and we had another friend of mine pass away, and her dad and I got divorced, and I got remarried, like all these life events that for a child wouldn't even begin to know how to express those feelings. So now we picked it back up again. So now it's every other week instead of just once a month check-in. So
yes, that is so important. I mean, and a lot of times, and especially, we're talking about kids here, but this starts at a young age. It's all about developing coping strategies. And if you don't have healthy coping strategies, those snowball into more and deeper problems down the road. So that doesn't mean that you can't do anything about it later in life. It's going to be a little bit tougher, but just because you didn't figure it out as a kid, or your parents didn't put you in therapy when you were like a preteen, adolescent, or whatever, that's not an excuse to not try now. So
and therapy is expensive too. So that kind of sometimes takes people out of the running. Even, I have health insurance, but even, a $50 copay for each visit, that's not a lot of money that people can afford to use.
Yeah. So. And that's a huge barrier for a lot of my patients. Like they don't either have time, or more often than not, it's the money. It's the fact they're coming out of pocket, or the therapist that their insurance does cover is not available for a year. So what do we do?
I would, my thinking is that we would normalize healthcare where there would be therapy available for elementary school students, have a check-in, just like how they do math and science and art and gym. You have a mental health day, or where the kids just get to go talk to someone, where they experience it. They also say, that's fine, but it just takes the stigma away because everybody's doing it. So just like everybody wants an iPhone, everybody wants some Jordan, everybody needs a therapist. So just become normalized.
Because then you would start laying the foundation of those skills earlier on. So
then for those that can't afford it, when they become adults, they can prioritize it. Or a lot of times they end up talking to us.
Right.
They're women visits.
Yes.
So
that's another point. So that's something that you and I are very passionate about. And there are a lot of clinicians out there who end up diving or delving into this pseudo therapy mental health space, right? So primary care, well women care doesn't have to just be about getting your A1C checked and your CMP and lipids and, all your preventative vaginal screenings and cervical cancer screenings, all the things, right? It's not just that. So let's talk about
the whole person.
So how do you dive into that? Like, how do you encounter that in your practice with your patients?
We always offer the depression screening, whether it's the PHQ-4 or, the Edinburgh for pregnant women. So depending on what that score is, or we just kind of check in and ask how they're doing. And sometimes the visit turns into an hour when we only had 20 minutes, but you just really needed someone to talk to. And I think a lot of times patients don't realize not slow, Sometimes some patients need extra time. So that's why we're running behind.
Yes, amen to that. Yes, yes, yes. I'm very passionate about that. If someone needs the time, I'm going to give it to them. And I've been with my patients, and my practice is mature enough now to where people know that if I'm running behind, I'm giving someone the time that they need, because and then when I see them, they'll get the time that they need, right? And yeah, that might push me back a little bit. Hopefully I have a few little sick visits in there somewhere to help me catch up. But that
Yes.
becomes a really important part of checking in with people and taking care of people. And have you ever had one of these situations where someone comes in and says, "Oh, I'm fine," and then you go, "Fine? You sure? Really? You sure about that?" And like I'll literally say that to people. You ever have any situations like that?
All the time, because everybody wants to be fine. We put this pressure on ourselves to keep up with the Joneses and to put on this brave face. And for people that still watch commercials, there was, the commercials for depression medication where it shows the lady holding a mask up with a smiling face instead of actually
Yes.
smiling herself.
Oh my gosh.
That's what we do. We do this all the time. And so a lot of times it just takes one else asking, like, "Are you really okay?" Or open up.
And then the waterworks come.
Yes.
So speaking of keeping up with the Joneses, one of the reasons this came up, not only because we were talking about this last night, and this topic of conversation comes up many times when we're together, but it's the holiday season. We have Christmas, there's Hanukkah. There's just this is a very overwhelming time of year for a lot of people, right? So if you could let's just kind of talk about our top pieces of advice, or our top things that we want to make sure that people think about, because mental health is all year round. Like, this is not something you just like seasonally deal with, but there are seasons, whether it's when you're dealing with loss, and holiday time, Christmas time, birthdays. These can be times that remind us of losses. This time of the year is really bad.
It is. And we're in Michigan, so there's no sun. And it just intensifies everything.
You were telling me a story about a nurse.
Really, she has 5 children, and it was probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. She was saying that, "Oh my goodness, went up. I'm so stressed about it." And I think her oldest is maybe 12 or 13. So I guess it's 4, I believe. So I always just say, and grateful for the things that whatever it is they get. So don't do it. You don't have to everything doesn't have to be a surprise. Elf on a shelf is too much work. Don't
do it.
Why are you stressing yourself out? No one would know whether you have an elf in your house unless you post the photos on Facebook and Instagram. That pressure on you to do those things. I personally, one of the things that they said years ago at church, because we also go to the same church, was want, need, wear, read.
Yes.
Things that you focus on for your children, something that they want, they need, something to wear, and something to read. And that way you take all the pressure off to fulfill this long, expensive list, because kids don't understand money and how it works. So they'll ask for whatever it is that they see. And so that makes it easy for you to shop, and it makes everybody equal, and everybody gets one thing that they want. And Christmas is not supposed to be about who hosts gifts. So that way you can just limit it to those 4 things.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly important. First thing you mentioned was not putting the pressure on yourself. And this point that you brought up is placing limits. So if you go into the season placing limits on things, so limits on your spending, limits on how you're going to use your time, limits on who you are going to, use your time and give your time to, and also defining what's important to you and what do you want to get out of the holidays, what do you want to get out of the season. So like those limits are important. So one of the limits that our household is also set is, I had a hard time with Santa Claus. I didn't want to do Santa Claus, but I feel like I got pressured into it because I didn't want him to be the only kid without Santa Claus.
I remember this conversation.
Oh gosh. Okay, so I did it. We have Santa, but Santa only brings one gift, and the rest come from mommy and daddy. And we don't even give a lot of gifts. I mean, he's got plenty of friends and family, so he doesn't need a lot anyway. But that was one of our limits. Is there's like a super duper one special gift that comes from Santa, and that was one of our limits. And similarly, the want, need, wear, read concept. So I think that's important. So set limits.
And when the kids get older, and the gifts become more expensive, or they just have everything they need, I started planning trips, activities, or something that they'll remember. Because I don't remember what I got for Christmas when I was 10 years old. I can't tell you. I mean, there's a couple of gifts that stand out that I kept for a long time or was really excited about. we got our first Nintendo, something like that. But otherwise, I can't even tell you what we got. But I can tell you about every vacation that we went on.
Yep.
I can tell you when it was something that could happen. So instead of spending, $1,000 trying to, get things for your kids or doing those things this year, Emily and I were going to see the Trans-Siberian Orchestra and doing something as family. And then we're also going to go see the Color Purple.
Oh, so good.
Christmas Day.
Can't wait.
So yeah, the Color Purple musical is coming out. So, and we used to do that, with our other friend Elisa. We would go to the movies on Christmas Day.
You know what? Okay,
like,
look,
that was a thing.
We need to restart that tradition over here, like starting this year.
It just takes the pressure off. Like we don't need to sit around for 8 hours opening up gifts. And I've started getting the matching Christmas pajamas because I think it's cute. It's something that now my kids are to the point where they can wear these pajamas indefinitely. So there's your wear right there.
Right.
Out of the gift.
Yeah.
New pajamas. So
something I also like people to understand is that people may not remember the things that you do for them, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And you don't have to, it's gonna make me emotional. You don't have to spend a lot of money to make someone feel good. And kids,
it comes down to, like I've lost both my parents and a sibling, and it just you remember those moments. You remember the feeling. I don't remember every gift my parents bought me, but I remember their presence and I remember the time that we spent.
Right.
Kind of memories that I want to create.
If we make the holidays. So as much as we're talking about our individual feelings as people, like you will preserve your own mental health if you focus on how you can pour into someone else. And that doesn't involve expensive gifts. It involves time and attention and love. And we need to focus on the non-tangibles and the time together and the experiences. And that will be so much more gratifying and a heck of a lot distressing and way more beneficial to you and your family if you do that.
What makes you happy? Like I really love wrapping gifts. I love wrapping gifts. Back when they had the wrapping paper stations at the stores, when people bought gifts in person, I used to say, I'm going to volunteer here and wrap gifts because I enjoy wrapping gifts. And I need to buy all these gifts. I can just volunteer to wrap other people's gifts for them. But
you can still wrap.
Really enjoy the decorating.
Just like I wrap. You know what I wrap? I wrap our pictures in our house. That's one of the things I wrap.
I told my husband, I said, I'm just going to end up, having some boxes that are wrapped, and then we use that to decorate the tree, and we'll just have less gifts. He thinks I'm crazy, but
I did that one year.
I really enjoy wrapping gifts. Yeah.
Totally. I saved a bunch of Amazon.
If you like to decorate, go ahead and decorate. If you don't, then don't.
Right. And that, oh my gosh. So that's point number 3. So number 1 was expectations. Number 2 was setting limits. And number 3, if you don't like it, don't do it. Right.
No is a complete sentence.
Yes.
You need to remember that. No is a complete sentence.
Yes. I had a patient that I had to follow up with today, and last month we met, and I'm seeing her for weight loss counseling, and she's not on any medications. She's been kind of like doing this more lifestyle modification, much slower process for her. And she was really stressed about Christmas. And, okay, of course I got into the conversation. Okay, why? And she was anticipating seeing relatives and being around people that she didn't want to be around. So I said, why do you have to do that? Who said you had to do that? Like, why? Just don't. So I talked with her today, and she's not doing that. And she was this relief, this weight was off of her shoulders.
There's a weight when you make the decision. So great.
So great. I love that. Yeah. I've gotten really good at saying no, not all the time, but I think you've heard no from me a lot more last few years. Like,
getting better. Yes.
Yep, nope.
Nope, I can't do that. And you don't have to explain why.
You have to explain why. And if you want to be real bold, just say, I don't want to. No, that's okay. That's okay. Stop being worried about other people's feelings, because guess what? No one's going to protect your feelings. You need to protect your feelings. So
yes, there is a song by an artist, and I am drawing a blank on his name, but he has a song called Boundaries. And the entire song is him saying the word no in multiple different ways. Like no. And then in the background, I'm setting boundaries.
I think I'm going to have to include a link to that in the podcast notes. That sounds great. So key takeaways, or what are final key takeaways? We came up with 3 things, right? Expectations or realistic expectations. I don't know. What do you want to say that first one is?
Just have to keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah. Don't keep
as it is. Making sure that to limit those things. That was probably the first one, was just normalizing care there seeking it out before crisis mode if you can, having them available when you need it.
And then number 2,
making sure you, want, need, where, read is a, example. It doesn't have to follow that, but it's easy to remember.
Yep.
So that way you don't feel the pressure of all the things and keep up with everybody else.
And one of the final things which applies across the board all year long is that no is a complete sentence.
Complete sentence. If you don't want to do it, then don't. Life is short.
Yes.
Life is short. It's too short to do. There's always going to be things that you have to do that you don't want to do. Don't add to the list.
Yes, please don't. If you don't have to do it.
Don't add to the list.
And you don't want to do it, then that means you don't do it. That's simple as that. Just don't. Oh my goodness. So yeah, liberating. All right. Thank you so much for taking time out with me tonight. I know this was a little bit last minute, but I knew that you would bring some good insight because this is something we talk about a lot. Oh,
pleasure. Talk for hours.
All right. Well, I know we'll have to do more podcasts, but I wanted to get this one out there before Christmas so that people can chill out.
If you say no, like, no, I could do that.
If you remember nothing else, just say no.
Say no to your kids, no to your family, whatever it is.
Yes, whoever it may be, just say no. All right. Thanks for joining us. This is Dr. Angela, Lifestyle MD. Please join us next time as we have another special guest who is one of my doctor friends, Dr. Sanborn, who does obesity medicine management. She'll be on to talk to us about some of her advice regarding not only just weight management, but also holding it through the holidays. All right. Take care, guys. Bye. This has been another episode of The Lifestyle MD. Special thank you to Lou Musa for the show theme music, created with Bree Photography and makeup by Janae for the cover photo. And if you enjoyed this podcast and you haven't already, please subscribe today and share with another woman doctor who may benefit. You may also follow me on Instagram at Angela Lifestyle MD. I am Dr. Angela. Thank you for joining me today.